Cold and windy and rainy tonight, especially in the west. Lowest temperatures between 1 and 2 degrees, but feeling colder. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Jeff and Heskey.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Well, busy evening ahead on the Football Show. Championship continues. Brentford 1, Leeds 1 after an hour of play. Leeds were 1-0 down in that game. Nottingham Forest 0, Charlton 1, also after an hour. Swansea and QPR 0-0. Wigan are 1-0 up at home to Middlesbrough. Barnsley and Birmingham City 0-0. Blackburn Rovers 0, Hull City 0. That is where we are in the Championship. So Leeds from 1-0 down to 1-1 and chasing the 3 points away to Brentford this evening. Hi lads, I'm remembering Ballyhonus in the 80s as well. I could get BBC One in the summer by twisting the aerial on the roof to watch the cricket with my cousin. We remembered Ian Botham besting the Aussies in the Ashes all by himself, says Tom. Somebody else says, I remember me and a friend went to Galway for a few days. We were there during Good Friday, forgot all the pubs were closed. We ended up watching United Liverpool outside a shop on Ayr Square, which had cable-linked TV with tiny screens. Good times, says Drummer. And Colin in Cork, in the 90s, South Coast TV in Cork was the provider of BBC and ITV in the Cork area. They also had Sky One and Eurosport. On Sundays during Premier League games or big wrestling competitions, they would switch to Sky Sports like clockwork. No charge, Colin in Cork. Basically, there are just a slew of people enjoying free television. There was nothing better than free subscription television that you did not pay for.
Do you remember when Sky Sports came out initially? Mm-hmm. So was it Nottingham Forest Liverpool was the first game Monday night? I think I knew one person who had Sky, and myself and my dad used to send on their house, whether they liked it or not, on a regular basis. And
it's very reminiscent of a time in Ireland when only one house in the town had a TV.
Exactly. And I don't even know if we were invited, but we would turn up without fail.
The Murphys are here
every Sunday. Just make ourselves at home, sit down, watch the game. I then went through a phase. It was all very innocent.
Sorry, what are we talking about here?
Whereby the local priest had Sky Sports, right? Very nice man. And he's just go down and watch the matches with himself and a few mates on a Sunday and a Monday. All very innocent.
Stop.
What? Sort of 94, 95 region.
People knew enough then to think maybe there should be adult supervision with you.
That was fine.
Fair enough.
You know.
So the priest had Sky Sports?
Of course the priest had Sky Sports.
What the yow?
Nice car and Sky Sports.
God.
Yeah.
Pass the basket round in church.
Mm.
More entries.
Sky Sports more expensive then?
I can't believe it was more expensive than it is now.
In proportion to, the average salary.
It feels very expensive now.
Mm.
That's a good question. I can't remember how much it was. Someone will...
Or was it just that it was so new, the actual thought of paying for extra channels?
Yeah, I would think
particularly in Ireland, where your mammy would be for like 10 years. Sure. You'd be grand. Sure, when we were growing up, we'd one channel, and now you've 6 channels.
I would think that, and it's crept up in proportion to wages, I would think. It's a good question, actually, I wonder. Because I remember, certainly in the 90s, the notion that we would be getting Sky Sports was laughed at.
When we started college in 2000, so it was like 5, 6 lads in a house, and we all chipped in together. Like day one, we are getting Sky Sports.
Yes.
We have grown up. This is one of the greatest days of our lives.
What age were you allowed to get a football jersey?
A football jersey? You know, football jersey. I remember having a Phil Babb jersey for USA 94, but I was 13 by then. I think I got the Liverpool, you know, the white and green.
Yeah.
The 4 squares.
Yeah.
And I had it about 2 days, and I went to the swimming pool in Ballyhonus, and I returned, and it was gone from my bag. And you know what it was like when you're 11. There's no sympathy from your parents. We just spent, whatever the equivalent was, on a brand new jersey. You couldn't mind it for 2 days. Whereas now, modern parenting is, I'd probably go, all right, I'll get you another one.
You poor thing, are you okay?
Yeah, this is terrible. It's terrible. How can someone do this? We're getting you a new one right away. And maybe a second one just so you don't feel bad.
Yeah.
Boy, what age were you?
Oh, I think late enough. I think 6th class. 6th class first year. It's a big issue. It's like every one of my friends has a jersey. How do I not have a jersey? Big issue. But now in hindsight, I can see my parents saying they're a rip-off.
Again, it's even worse. But whereas now, like one of my kids wears nothing. He's like 6. Wears nothing but football jerseys.
How much is a 6-year-old replica jersey now?
You pay between 50 and 60 quid. And what's worse is
it's a disgrace.
when they go past 4 to 5,
it's a disgrace, really.
You don't get shorts and socks.
Okay.
So up to 4 to 5, you get the full package, all included. Whereas, now, I think for a 6-year-old, you're definitely looking at. I think the last time I was at a Liverpool match, I was looking around. It could have been £54 for a kid's football jersey.
It's a disgrace.
It
is a scandal, and they change them every
year.
Every year.
Because when we were growing up, it was every 2 years.
That's right. There is not a chance. I have no children, but there is not a chance my 6-year-old is getting a jersey. Now, come back to me in however many years when I've relented.
In terms of the terrible things that they will want, from games consoles down, jerseys are the easiest. Of course, if you go on your holidays to somewhere in Spain,
you can have those ones.
So suddenly it's boom, have as
two,
many of them
3,
as you
4?
want.
No, I'm good for that.
But very quickly, even then, we were there last year and one of them got a Real Madrid jersey and comes home from school about 2 weeks later. Someone said this was fake.
No.
I'm like, what do you want about? What do you want?
There were numerous entries to the Aldi quiz that we couldn't read out.
Worse than Randy Savage.
Greg the Hammer. A personal
Was
favourite.
Greg the Hammer?
It's pretty just a made-up name.
I thought it was like Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
It's just a made-up name. Damien Delaney, is he standing by? Damien Delaney, hello.
Hi lads, how are you?
How you doing? I don't know how long you were there for, just ignore the last few minutes. It was complete and utter waffle.
I just caught Greg the Hammer a bit.
I'm not going to explain it.
But do you know what we should touch on sometime, actually?
Go on then.
Which has sort of been a bit of a story over in England the last couple of days. Charging for mascots. So this is a big issue around West Ham, where they're charging 400 or 500 quid for your child to be a mascot at a game. I grew up assuming that somehow to win a competition. They reckon that some of the clubs are making $500,000 a year on charging for mascots.
Yeah, wow. Doesn't surprise me.
Come on.
You can't have been that naive, surely, Nathan.
You just thought they were being nice to the kids?
Yes, I presumed that it was competition winners and deserving children.
Yeah, deserving €500. You deserve to go out there.
I didn't think somebody's rich daddy was paying for them to go and walk out with the Crystal Palace team.
Yeah, no, that's.
I think we need to explain a lot to you, maybe, about tooth fairy and stuff like that.
You know, the players got paid lots of money too.
What?
You know? Yeah.
An outrage.
Did you make an effort with the mascots? Because I don't like when I see players just ignoring a kid looking up to them in wonder.
Yeah, I always did. Yeah, definitely. I'd always ask him his name and tell him just before you walk out, just make sure you follow me and I'll tell you what to do and stuff. Because sometimes the kids can get a little bit lost and you turn around and he's not where he was supposed to have been and things like that. So I always ask him his name and make sure I told him he had a good day and stuff like that.
Sorry, that's bossing
because
him
it was
around.
always funny.
That's just bossing him around. What's your name? Follow me. You really put him at ease there.
There's a bit of pressure on players now though because of this new phenomenon, especially at this time of the year where it's cold.
Oh yeah, you have to give them your tracksuit.
You have to give them the tracksuit top,
yeah.
But you have to make sure the TV camera's on you when you're doing it.
Correct. And also, kids are a little bit braver these days. Like we've seen some high-profile players where kids stuck out the hand to shake the hand, and then the hand has come back. What do you do if a kid snubs you like that? Well, I don't know what you can do.
There was the famous Steven Gerrard one.
Oh, wasn't it? Give a little slap.
Wasn't it the Chelsea? No, Steven Gerrard. Yeah, and he pulled the hand back because the kid I think is about 14 or 15 now and was talking about this week that he had been promised by his father 6 PlayStation games if he did this. And fair play to the kid. He did.
Good on him.
Were you aware of the TV camera around tunnel time? So I always sense there's certain players, Damien, who are very aware of where they are in terms of the television cameras and sort of play up to it at times. Would you have seen that?
Yeah, listen, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the tunnel at Selhurst Park. It's so narrow and tight that the camera almost bumps into you as you're walking out. It's single file only to get out of the tunnel. But there are definitely a lot of players who are well aware of where the cameras are and they make sure they get their good side and everything. And
oh yeah, but never you.
No, definitely not me. No.
So
do you know what? I was always too busy when I was walking out of a tunnel at Selhurst Park, just to make sure I wasn't caught on camera staring at the cheerleaders. I was kind of going, just eyes down, eyes down, eyes down.
I knew he was going to go there. I knew that's what he was going to say. And I thought, nah, surely he'll stop himself.
yeah, surely he won't say that. But no, he did.
What were they called? The Crystals?
The Crystals, yeah. Just you didn't want to be caught on camera.
Don't know how I knew that.
Yeah, sure, okay. Damien.
Yes.
The championship is on this evening. Obviously, it's kind of catching everyone's eye because Leeds are doing their thing again, it seems, and it's all very intriguing and interesting. They're 1-0 with Brentford still after 70 minutes. And we were just chatting in the office earlier on and making a lot of the points that I think people make about the championship. 46 league games, such a slog, you're playing all the time. And we thought, who better than you, who's played in the Premier League and who's played in the championship, to give us a sense of the different demands. So there's a whole bunch of different areas to this. Like the one to kick off on, maybe, anytime Kev Kilban's in here, and sometimes we say to him, why don't we see players, for instance, passing for their club and then not doing it at Irish international level? And he made a point which I think maybe applies to Championship versus Premier League. He was saying, do you not understand the extra media attention, what that does to players? And so I presume when you're playing in your 10 years in the Championship, it's a very different prospect if in front of 7 million people who watch Match of the Day, you have Alan Shearer and Ian Wright drawing a circle around Damien Delaney, big circle, and saying, this guy messed up here, this is terrible defending. So right from the off, just the media attention must be so different when you make that step up.
I think the only difference in the media attention is the size of the audience, because you're even if you're playing in League Two, your own fans are going to highlight what you've done wrong and chance how you dug out. So, I always was a view there that, if 100 people saw it or 100 million, it made no difference. I saw it myself and it was my mistake and I was well aware that I made that mistake. And I never really worried about how many people saw it. Because, an honest footballer will always admit when he made a mistake or got something wrong, and that's kind of was my mindset,
That's quite a strong mindset. Was everyone that way? Because I presume for some players, suddenly having Match of the Day tear their performance apart must have been very tricky for them, and genuinely and understandably.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people, stepped on the pitch, and if you're on a 12:30 game on a Saturday, it's going out in Asia at 8 o'clock to the billion people, because that's what those kickoffs are for. So a lot of people were kind of getting nervous, but I was always thinking, I don't know anything. I don't know a billion people in China, so it makes no difference to me. I don't know any of them, so I'll just get on with my day.
But I don't think the people that were nervous felt they knew them either, especially. But I like the mindset.
No, but that's definitely a huge aspect. A lot of players can get the better mentally, that going into the Premier League and the increased exposure. That definitely is a big reason as to why a lot of players fail to make the step up.
Would you have watched Match of the Day of an evening?
No.
Why?
I kind of made partly because of what you just said there. I just wouldn't. I never did any media or social media or anything like that. I just kind of cocooned myself in my own world, and just tried to give myself an honest assessment of how I did. And if 1 million people said that I was useless, I would try not to let that distract from what I was trying to achieve or where I was trying to go. I just made sure that, I assessed the game honestly afterwards and watched it back with the game on mute, if I did watch it back, and then just assess my performance that way.
Was it a thing ever that managers brought up at Premier League level and said, lads, ignore the media and don't watch Match of the Day, ignore all the noise? Were managers ever hot on that, or others said nothing probably?
Not at all. I just think if a player wants to indulge in social media or kind of get lost in that world, then I think if you're going to accept that, then you have to accept when you get criticised as well as the praise, because it's both of them need to be ignored equally, because if you start logging on Twitter and things like that after you've played well, just to make yourself feel better, I used the exact same mindset for when I played well. I still wouldn't go near any of it or watch any of it, because I kind of had my mindset of none of it's real. When I play well, it doesn't matter, and when I play poorly, it doesn't matter. It's how I assess myself.
You're obviously, as Joe said, quite a strong character when it comes to that, because I think the majority of people who are involved in public life in any way can't help but look online and see what the general vibe is, and people end up searching for their names. But it's also, I would imagine, incredibly hard to ignore, because James McLean was in here a couple of weeks ago talking about his mates sending him various different clips of people criticising him at times, and they'd never send him the good stuff. They'd only send them things that they knew would kind of wind them up. That even though you can ignore it all you want, but people close to you are obviously still hearing what's been said. Would they never feed it back to you?
I always, if anyone in my group of friends ever sent me anything about that, I would absolutely lambast that friend and say, don't ever send that to me ever again. I have no interest in that. It was going to have no bearing on my life. So after a while, they just stopped sending it to me, you know. But James is fairly prominent on social media, so he has to accept the good and the bad. I just think once you put yourself out there, that's just goes with the territory. Whereas I just chose not to do it, and my sanity definitely was for the betterment.
Yeah, no, I think if you have the discipline, it's definitely the right thing to do. What about 46 league games versus 38 league games? Would your body know the difference?
Oh, did listen, unbelievable. I mean, for me getting out of the championship at the time I did couldn't have come at a more kind of precious time, because I think I was 30, 31, and I had 10 years of that championship. Now, that is physically and mentally the most demanding league you could ever wish to play in. Anyone that's had 4 or 5 seasons in that knows, you know, if you're averaging 50 games a season between cup competitions and stuff like that, it's a slog, it's difficult, and these players are getting to that stage now that I think the championship becomes survival of the fittest. You know, all tight, all passing and, you know, shape and niceties. It's just about getting it over the line right now. And I think that's something possibly where Leeds are falling down right now. You know, you just have to just show character, grit, determination, and just get results over the line, and get to where you need to go to. It's difficult, very, 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 very difficult.
Yeah. So on average, what is it, 2 games a week, or what kind of gap would you have?
Yeah, you play on a Saturday and a Tuesday more normally, but you know, sometimes you could play Saturday, Tuesday. Sometimes you could play Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, which I hated, because I always thought that the night game on Wednesday night was difficult, because you always struggle to sleep after night games, because you usually have a long sleep in the afternoon getting ready for the game, and then obviously after the game the adrenaline is flowing. So I used to hate the night games, and I especially hated Wednesday night, because it could be 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and then you'd be in Thursday morning for a recovery session, and then you're playing again on Saturday. And if you're in an away game, you're travelling on a bus on a Friday morning again. So it's pretty difficult, and it's not nice. But Saturday you play, at least you can go home and wind down, have something to eat and relax and get a decent night's sleep Saturday. And then Sunday you'd be in for a recovery. Either a pool session or a light kind of a jog and a stretch, maybe yoga, or some light weights or something like that. And then Monday you're straight into the prep game for Tuesday night. So you're doing shape straight away. Again, nothing heavy on the legs. It's just about, you know, saving your energy really, you know. But if you have an away game then on a Tuesday night, it means you're travelling on Monday lunchtime to say Preston, and then you know, hotel in Preston at Monday at 5 o'clock, and then have a night's sleep, and then you put down all day Tuesday just sleeping basically, and then you got the bus or the flight back from Preston.
Jeez, even mentally that's very relentless.
Yeah, it is.
You're going back 7-8 years ago, and obviously probably the strength and conditioning side of the game has come on a whole lot since then. Were coaches very aware of that, the need for rest back then, or was there a certain old school nature of you just got to get on with this, I want players on the training ground every day?
No, if you were playing, you spend your whole life warming up and cooling down. So you know, you do a warm up and then you do a cool down, and you might only have a handful of training sessions during the really busy periods. And then when you do get some time off, you know, let's say after a busy Christmas period, you know, the manager might give you a few days, but then you're straight back into it. And then, you know, the worst part is you get to Easter. And then Easter is usually kind of Easter Friday and Easter Sunday. You know, they throw in that 2 games in 3 days again. Just when you're on your knees and you're really, really struggling, they just chuck it in. But I suppose from a positive point of view, if you're in the hunt for a promotion or playoffs, you can rattle off a couple of games, you know, 4 games in 2 weeks. Yeah. And that's 12, you know, that's 12 points, and you can either put yourself in good tension or you know, you can put yourself out of it as well.
In terms of the demands of the individual games, this is going back a little bit, but maybe the same parallel applies. I always remember Tony Adams when Arsenal first started playing Champions League games, and Arsenal played at Wembley. You remember a few of those first couple of seasons. And he made an interesting point at that stage. He was quite struck by the fact that in the Premier League, if we now call that kind of the Championship equivalent, he was saying that you'd be in the wars, in the trenches on a Saturday, and you'd keep a clean sheet, but you'd be involved non-stop physically in it. And then you'd go up to a Wednesday against Fiorentina, And you might feel like you're never in the game. Like the tempo for 70% of the time is very slow, and then bang, 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 you conceded 3, and physically you don't feel like you've ever got to grips with anyone in your kind of area. So the demands of the individual games, were they very different as a centre half, or was it pretty similar?
They're very, very similar. I mean, obviously a lot of teams in the Championship now try to play football. There's very few. But as I said to you, people are so tired at this stage of the season from maybe, I always think that once you get to Valentine's Day, you're kind of on the road home, and then Patrick's Day comes around, and then before you know it, it's Easter. And the Masters was on the telly as well. That was always a big sign for me, because you're cutting haze and you have little markers throughout the year that you kind of get to, and you know you're almost there, or you know that you're over a tough period and stuff like that. So the games and the teams in the Championship are so even. A lot of teams have money in the Championship now, but you really do, to win a game in the Championship, you have to play so well. It's difficult because you're going to get effort and determination and grit and all that. Over Christmas there, I was in the UK and I went to watch Leeds v Preston. And it was the first Championship game I'd watched for in a while, and it frightened me a little bit because the intensity that Preston play with, the midfield players, the pressing. It's not like the Premier League where, some team have a spell of possession. Preston were just relentless in their pressing and the way they went about it. And I just remember thinking, I don't miss that. I'm telling you, on a cold winter's night, difficult.
And a Premier League game by comparison?
Similar to what you were saying, like there with Tony Adams and stuff. Obviously when Crystal Palace would play West Brom or Watford or Bournemouth, it was very, very competitive. But then the following week you could play Man City, and similar to what Tony Adams was saying there, you might go from having against Bournemouth or Watford 70 touches in a game and being physical and being stiff to maybe only having like maybe 15 touches against Man City, because they're just continuously recycling the ball and you're just sliding, and it's more about concentration and not letting your concentration slip, so you're in the right place all the time so you don't make a mistake. So in the Premier League it can be a little bit like that as well.
On the Leeds situation then, it's still 1-1 in that game against Brentford, so that'd be 2 wins in their last 11 in the Championship. And I think that game against Preston was one of the ones where maybe they did show that character and a bit of energy at the end of the game, where they got a late equaliser. The assumption, and we spoke to Adam Pope, was the night after the defeat to Arsenal in the FA Cup, where they were just at the start of this run, and this has been a constant theme of Bielsa's career in coaching, that teams dip towards the end of the season, and common consensus is because they just run out of energy. Adam Pope was insistent that that wasn't the case. And I'm just wondering what you were talking about there. Bielsa, so much of it is the tactical side of the game. Could it also be that he doesn't get any time with his players on the training ground, that he needs a lot of contact hours, where at this stage of the season in the English Championship, you just need to get your message across quickly, which may be something he struggles with, or does it simply just come down to fatigue?
I think sometimes, I was aware that Bielsa stat they were talking about there, and I thought about it, and I think he probably just sets a pace early in the season, almost like going off in a marathon on a 3/4 pace. You will die a little bit, and when players get tired physically and mentally, they'll make mistakes. So if you've got nice intricate passing and rotations and stuff like that, when players are tired, it'll happen a little bit slower. They'll be loose first touch, and it won't quite be what it is. And that's okay, that happens, but then you need something to fall back on, which is just pure grit and determination. And sometimes players just go, do you know what, it's not our night tonight, Tuesday night, away to Preston or wherever we are. You know what, man, let's just get it up to the big man, pick the bits up and just grind this out as best we can. And we'll come away from here at 1-0, and come Thursday morning, nobody's even going to worry about it or think about it, but it's 3 points in the bag. And I think, now it's been a while since I've been in the Championship, but I still follow it quite a bit. I still think that rule applied when I was in the Championship, and I think it still applies now. There comes a point in the season where you just got to just throw everything out the window and just have some real heart to get it over the line.
That sort of grit that you're talking about there within a team, is that something that's just innate within a team, or is that something that's very much spoken about in the dressing room pre-game, where you have experienced players who've been through the Championship who can stand up and sort of recognise that as it's happening?
Yeah. I think it's characters. You need to have the right type of characters in your changing room. But then again, if the manager is saying, no, we have to do this, we have to do this, still at some point as a player, you might just go, do you know what, man, I'm just going to head this. I'm not going to take it down. I know he wants me to try and take this down, or I know he wants me to play little passes into midfield, but I'm just not feeling the team is full of energy right now. So I'm just going to go off the front, and you know what, the manager can shout at me if he wants. But, if we get the win, it'll be a lot better. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to just put tactics out the window and get a win. And I know that's difficult to describe or understand, but I hope I'm getting my point across there. It's a tough league, you know.
What's the biggest difference between a striker in the Premier League and a striker in the Championship?
The amount of direct balls that come up in the Championship and the amount of times that they will just chase lost causes in the Championship. I mean, they won't give you minutes piece, centre forward, wide players, midfield players. They're just relentless in what they do. You know, balls down the side, they'll chase it so they can get a throw in. They'll run goalkeepers down so the goalkeeper has to kick it out for a throw in. You know, that's much more prevalent in the Championship as opposed to in the Premier League, where it'll be more about they'll tell centre midfield players, don't go and press the centre back because, he'll just pass it around you and then there's a hole in midfield. They'll say to the midfield player in the Championship, press him, run him down, because even if he passes it around you, they won't have the same quality to come through you like a knife through butter the way they will in the Premier League. So it's just a relentless pressing game in the Championship.
Okay, all very interesting. And I should say, you're going to be at the Alex Hotel on the 17th of February. You're previewing the Champions League, and alongside you will be Brian Kerr, Keith Andrews, Graham Souness as well. Nathan will be there. So if people want to go along, then offtheball.com/events is the place to go. It's an over 18s event only. So we'll get
Monday night.
Get more of your thoughts then. Yeah, should be good. You and Souness holding court. Oof.
It'll be a good one.
Keith Andrews just be in the corner, keeping a little bit quiet.
Yeah, Keith, me and Graham can try and talk here. Listen, thanks a mil. Good to have you with us.
Thanks.
All right, good man. Damien Delaney, always interesting on a host of things, comparing Championship and Premier League this evening. Still Leeds 1, Brentford 1, by the way.
This is OTB AM.
On this morning's OTB AM, Andrew Conway explained his on-field partnership with Conor Murray.
Yeah, his kicking is the best box kick in the world, and if he can put it in and around a certain area and I'm 100% committed to the chase, then we've got a chance of getting the ball back.
And Tyrone's Colin McShane told us just how close he was to go into the AFL.
It was an appealing factor in terms of, just the lifestyle. It did come close in terms of, obviously, it came down to the last day where I had to decide. I'm really, really happy with my decision. Happy here to stay in Ireland, stay in Tyrone.
Join us tomorrow morning from 7:30, where we'll have the latest edition of the Classic Game Club.
OTB AM, Ireland's only sports breakfast show, weekdays from 7:30 AM, only on OTB Sports Radio. Live 24/7 on the Go Loud app.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Shearer and Owen.
The Pat Kenny Show.
On tomorrow's programme, torrid fires and torrential rains, how the Australians are coping. Stephanie Hickey on how she survived abuse at the hands of a trusted family member and how running helped her gain equilibrium. That and all the breaking news.
The Pat Kenny Show.
With Jaguar.
Tomorrow morning at 9.
On News Talk.
Have a great evening with itsforwomen.ie. Great value car insurance on the web, on demand, on the go. Itsforwomen.ie. It's always on hand. It's always online.
I'm Peter Jones. Lifting business performance is critical in today's uncertain times. But how do you keep up with changing regulations and rising demands? How do you break free from manual processes to raise productivity? The answer is technology that elevates performance and comes with industry-leading support. Over 1 million businesses, including my investment group, trust Sage to manage their finances, operations and people.
Elevate your business today with our free performance review. Visit sage.com/ie/perform.
Come the day and come the hour. The time has come to get behind your team. Be part of all the Six Nations at D2, the home of sports. Watch all the games with action as epic as our 20-foot monster screen. Soak up the atmosphere with tempting matchday specials. Then keep the buzz going with music through the night. So why not give it your all? Answering Ireland's call. For reservations, email info@d2.ie. D2, the home of sports.
Connor, what on earth are you wearing?
You mean the ballet tights?
Yes, I mean the ballet tights.
Well, if that fella in the avant-garde ad can go all Swan Lake in the street, why can't I?
Whatever you want to do, an Avantcard credit card makes doing it far easier. Apply today at avantcard.ie. Avantcard. You do you, we do credit.
Brenda, I want to express myself.
I'll express myself now if you go out looking like that.
Lending criteria, terms, conditions apply. Avantcard DAC, trading as Avantcard, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Simple ways to surprise yourself. Sleeping through your morning alarm.
Oh no!
Leaving an upturned plug beside your bed.
Ah,
not turning on the hot water.
Cool.
or winning up to €50,000 instantly on the new Bingo and Cashword scratch cards.
Introducing the new Bingo and Cashword scratch cards from the National Lottery. Now with even more chances to win. Pick them up in-store today and surprise yourself. Play responsibly, play for fun.
Find yourself correctly predicting the
future.
Knowing what people are going to do.
Before they do it.
Finishing other people's
sentences.
No.
You can't predict the future. When overtaking a cyclist, allow plenty of room. For zones of 50k and under, allow at least 1 metre. For zones over 50k, allow at least 1.5 metres. You can't read the mind of a cyclist, and they can't read yours. Don't second guess. You may not get a second chance. From the Road Safety Authority.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Now then, you're very welcome back. So always good to have Tim Vickery with us. You're there, Tim?
Yeah, here I am.
Good man.
I ain't going nowhere.
Well, don't you dare. So we saw this. I mean, it's made headlines around the world, I suppose, because Pele is such an internationally famous figure, and we all have a relationship of sorts with Pele, I suppose. Pele depressed was the big headline which caught everybody's eye. Pele depressed over his poor health and reluctant to leave the house because he cannot walk unaided, according to his son. He will be 80 in October, had hip trouble for years, now needs a frame to walk. It's a very terrible thought, really. I know time gets us all, but Pele gone through a very tough time, according to his son.
Yes, this is part of an interview with his son. The full interview, I think, is coming out on Thursday. This was a little teaser, and there's plenty to discuss with his son. If you're into The Godfather, Joe Molloy, there's elements of Fredo about his son, Edinho. Not easy being a son, especially a son to the great Pele. So plenty more content to come. But this is the first thing that has come out. Whether Pele himself is happy that this has come out, I'm not too sure. Whether he wants people to know that he's in this condition. We're not writing any obituaries yet, thankfully, or certainly I hope not. In fact, Edinho did say that overall Pele is okay, bearing in mind the problems of ageing. But it is very sad to think of him not wanting to leave the house. And this is someone who, when he stopped playing in 1977, doesn't seem to have suffered the kind of existential crisis that many players do when they hang up their boots. And he still absolutely loved being Pele. I think he relished his own biography, relished the story of poor Edson Arantes do Nascimento, who became Pele, who became one of, if not the most famous person on earth. And he threw himself into his work, a lot of work for sponsors. Partly, I think this may have been motivated by the financial insecurity of his youth that I don't think he's ever completely shaken off. But he loved being seen in public. He loved being Pele. So the fact that he doesn't seem to get any pleasure from that anymore now that he is apparently embarrassed to be seen in public because of his condition is sad indeed.
Well, I suppose without getting into too much pop psychology, when your identity has been being the king for so long, then you can understand what a jolt it is to a system to be frail and in a wheelchair and to be embarrassed by that. Even, of course, he's no reason to be embarrassed at the age of 80 to be struggling with his hip, but you can see how he doesn't want that to become a part of his legacy in public, at least.
Well, you don't need to enter into the realm of pop psychology there. You can just quote Edinho directly, because Edinho said, and he used almost the same expression that you said, he said, imagine the situation. He's the king. He's always been an imposing figure, and now he can't walk properly. Obviously, in the battle between the athlete and time, there is only ever one winner, and that's just as true about Pele as it is for the rest of us.
When you think back to 2016, Tim, and the Rio Olympics, everybody, I think, at the time expected Pele would be the one who'd light the Olympic flame, and he didn't in the end, because at that stage as well, he was suffering from ill health, or maybe it was that same sort of situation where he didn't want to be seen in this very high-profile moment, not being the Pele that people remember. Is it a similar situation now?
Yeah, well, he's had a number of health problems, and he is, after all, coming up 80. He's had prostate problems, but this specific one, this hip replacement, Edinho talked about the after operation work not being ideal, and this, I think, surely is part of the price that he is paying for being Pele. You know, top-level sport is extremely aggressive on the body, and all the buffeting he took over a football career of more than 20 years, I think is that the bill has now arrived. I'm sure we all know ex-footballers who have problems getting around. There is a price to pay for all of that glory.
What is Pele's place in Brazilian culture? I mean, his popularity, how he's seen in this part of the world. Certainly, I would associate him with really enjoying sponsorship and, as you say, you know, money being a big factor for him. I saw in one piece on him a while back, they made the point, you know, his nickname is the King, and then Garrincha his nickname is the Joy of the People. So Pele's standing, is he seen as somebody who maybe is a little above, you know, the joy of the people and a little interested in Pele's bank balance? Because I know in the build-up to the World Cup, he initially criticised the protesters and then rode back a little bit from that, obviously, and not everybody thought that was the greatest thing to say, and he said it. So where is his legacy for somebody who should just be universally adored?
Yeah, there is, I think, quite a cold, calculating side to him, and the contrast with Garrincha is an extreme contrast of someone who really couldn't cope but lived for the minute against someone who I've always thought that Pele has been haunted by what happened to his father, who was an aspiring footballer, who on his big day suffered a career-ending injury, and that plunged the family back into poverty with no perspectives. You know, Pele had to become a footballer against the prolonged protests of his mother, who really saw it as an insecure profession. To be honest, I think that the flaws in him, and there have been flaws, he hasn't conducted all of his affairs well over the last few years. Financial affairs, he hasn't always associated with the best people. But I think that's part of what made him Pele. You know, that drive to make the best of his talent. You don't just switch that off when you hang up your boots. And I think a lot of that has been motivated by the trauma of childhood poverty. In terms of his legacy, yes, there is a kind of cold and calculating side to him, and that does perhaps create a distance. Having said that, this man has been, I think, the most perfect public relations exercise that Brazil has ever had, and probably that football has ever had. I don't think anyone did more to establish football as this extraordinary global success story. And in terms of Brazil, he cemented, I think, an image of Brazil in the eyes of the world as a kind of happy-go-lucky and successful country, you know, with the way that he played his football with a winning smile. So, and he is someone who you could probably round him up. If you're looking for a British comparison, you could say that he's kind of Ben Stokes, Lord Nelson, Winston Churchill and Gary Lineker all rolled into one. So whatever distance some might feel from him, the moment when he does leave us will be an extraordinary, significant moment for this country.
Yeah, I've no doubt ultimately he'll be remembered for what he was, which is the world's greatest footballer. Like when I was growing up, I'm sure your generation was... we're of the same generation, and I presume it was the case with you, Tim. But when I was growing up, before certain Lionel Messi came along, even with Maradona, it was just locked in my head that the greatest footballer of all time was Pele. That was just the rule. I'd never seen Pele play, but I knew Pele was the greatest footballer who'd ever played.
You know, one of the strange things about his career is that he is so connected with the World Cup. You know, he was part of 3 World Cup winning teams, but I don't think the World Cup ever saw him at his best. And he was a kid, a 17-year-old in 1958, full of brilliant moves, but still a very, very skinny kid. Come 1970, he knows it all. He knows what's going on around him. He's such a great team player, but he's bulked up and he's slowed up a little bit. Now, the Pele in the early to mid-60s, just out of this world. It's like you're watching someone from a different species. And my favourite World Cup goal of Pele's is against Mexico. You can see this on YouTube. In the opening game of Brazil's 1962 campaign, he just charges through the Mexican defence. He's just a machine for playing football. He's quick, he's strong, he's balanced, right foot, left foot. It's like watching the teacher in Kes charging through the kids. It's just extraordinary. And he gets injured in the next game. and doesn't play any further part in the tournament. And that I think has always been a big shame, because that could have been his Maradona 1986. Pele himself says that his greatest ever performance, it came in the World Club Cup, which had just got started in the early 60s. And at the start, it was a great competition. The champions of Europe, home and away against the champions of South America. And he was playing for Santos against Benfica. Narrow win for Santos at home. They travelled to Lisbon. The Portuguese, Eusebio and so many great players, really thinking they're the favourites. And Pele puts Santos 5-0 up. And again, if you just watch those clips on YouTube, it's an extraordinary display, magical display of football. And when you watch him like that, you kind of think, well, he did sustain this over a long period of time. And he came out in the big games as well. When you see clips like that, you think, well, I know his place as the world's greatest ever player. Sometimes it's under challenge these days. But when you look at clips like that, you understand why he won that position in the first place.
I was the same as you, Joe, brought up on that diet of Pele was the greatest ever. And that World Cup annual that's behind you there had a list of World Cup greatest goals. And one of them was Pele, 58 semi-final against Sweden, where he flips the ball over the defender's head and hits it first time on the volley. And it goes through in detail, and obviously YouTube wasn't around in 1990, so it's probably 10 years later when you actually see it, and it's just as good, if not better, as it's described. And just in terms of, you mentioned Messi there, and so for so long it was Pele or Maradona, and now this new generation comes around and it's Messi or Ronaldo, and maybe Messi, in a lot of people's eyes, is the greatest of all time. How did Pele take that in recent years from what you know? Like, was he quite gracious around the praise that would go in Messi's way?
No. And Pele, and again, that competitive instinct, you don't switch that off. I remember going into depth about Pele with Tostão, who played up front for him in the 1970 World Cup. And he would talk about how angry Pele would get on the field when things weren't going his way. Force of nature, an absolute force of nature. And a lot of his post-career work has been all about defending his prestige and defending his position. And when anyone brings Lionel Messi up, he'll say, yeah, nice left foot, but, I was right foot, I was left foot, I was in the air. There was a time in Brazil, it's either funny or sad to think about this now, but going in to the 2006 World Cup, it was common to hear and to read in Brazil that it was a competition in which Ronaldinho was going to prove that he was better than Pelé. We obviously know how that one worked out. But Brazil's first game, it was quite a laboured 1-0 win over Croatia with a goal from Kaká. And at the end of the game, Pelé couldn't wait to get across to the Brazilian press and tell them that he thought Ronaldinho had been the worst player on the field. So the idea of anyone getting close to his position, no, he's until his last breath, he's going to defend that position, and he's very, very proud of it. It's his life's work.
And how in the main has he spent his retirement? I mean, I know all the commercial deals and he'll travel around to various footballing functions. What was Pele's life like day to day, do we know?
Working, doing that. I think that he will go to his grave unable to feel financially secure. I don't know if you know anyone who went through poverty as a kid. My mum did. Her hand still shakes when bills come through. You don't shake it off. I don't think Pele's ever been able to shake it off. So he's done a lot. The financial thing is important. It's been a means of putting food on the table, but also he's absolutely loved being Pelé, and he's been a public figure. Remember that this man has been a public figure since he was 15, 16, and he's always seemed entirely comfortable doing it. And this was a point that Tostão made. Remember, Tostão is a qualified doctor with a huge interest in mental health issues as well, and he would say that Diego Maradona has always had problems living the aftermath of being Diego Maradona, and he's spontaneous. If he wants to take his shirt off and kind of swing it around his head and leave the chance, that's what he does. Pelé, no. Pelé, there's no separation in Pelé's mind between the public figure and the private figure. He's entirely happy doing it. So I think the endless promotional work that he's done over the last few decades. I kind of get the impression it's never really been too much of a burden to him.
Okay.
You know, not only does it make him money,
Yeah.
it also he thrives on the prestige that he built up over his playing career.
Yeah, he has embraced the statesman role. So you mentioned his son there, and this, we're talking Pele depressed, reclusive because of poor health was the headline for people just tuning in as we talked to Tim Vickery over in Rio. So you mentioned his son had an interesting backstory. In so much as you can about Pele's private life, because I do appreciate it's private. Does he have many children, many wives? Has he had a very stable family life? And what's the Godfather reference you made to his son?
Well, he's been through a few. He's been through a few wives. He has sown his seed. In fact, one of the episodes in his life that doesn't leave a good taste in the mouth is he didn't treat very well a child that he had out of wedlock who had to fight long and hard for official recognition, and Sandra, who became a local politician in Santos based on campaigns to force fathers to live up to their rights. And the fact that she went public with this story obviously enraged Pele, who wasn't happy with that at all. Edinho was how do you become Pele's son and be a footballer? He decided that he wanted to be a goalkeeper. He was a little bit too short for the role, and he wasn't quite good enough. He played for Santos, Pele's old club, but he wasn't really at the level, and it was a bit sad to see. Now he has been convicted. He proclaims his innocence still, but he has been convicted of money laundering and association for drug trafficking. He served time. He's currently out in a kind of open prison regime, working with Santos youth development work. But that's not an entirely happy chapter, I think, of Pele's life either, the problems that his son has had. And there's a story that Edinho tells, which I think really exemplifies how difficult it is to be his son. All Edinho wanted, was praise from his father. That's all he wanted. And he was playing in goal. His father came to watch him, and he had a great game. He stopped everything. But he had a problem in that he'd suffered a foot injury, and he didn't take the goal kicks. But he saved everything and kept a clean sheet, being the man of the match. And he's desperate to get words of praise from his father after the game. And when he meets Pele, Pele looks at him and says, "Well, why aren't you taking the goal kicks?" And Edinho explains, I've got an injury, so no, I couldn't do it." And Pele just looks at him with a withering scorn and says, "Well, can't you kick with your left foot?"
Yeah.
Not easy being a son, Fredo.
So this interview is going out, you said, this week. Well, is this a big event? Is Edinho a national figure? Everyone knows who Pele's son is, I guess. Well,
yeah, it's a story, isn't it? Pele's son convicted of these charges, although I repeat, he still proclaims his innocence. So it's I'm sure it'll be a big thing, but clearly they have teased this information about Pele's depression, because that's probably that's probably certainly from an international point of view. I'm sure that will be the biggest thing to come out of this interview.
Yeah.
Hence the fact that it's got such international attention, and we're talking about it right now.
And it's so poignant. I mean, it would be a dreadful way for him to finish out his days. So hopefully he finds a way out of it and can make a few public appearances. Because I suspect the Brazilian public will want to almost bring him in for a collective hug on the back of it.
Later this year, obviously, it's the 50th anniversary of that great 1970 World Cup win. And then further on in October, you get his 80th birthday. So hopefully he's around and well enough to enjoy these two occasions, for all of the pleasure that he's given to millions and can still give to millions by the medium of YouTube. Go and have a look at those goals if you don't know them already. The one against Mexico in '62 and the ones against Benfica at the end of '62. For all of the pleasure that he gave and continues to give, he certainly deserves to get much more pleasure from his what sadly are his declining years.
Tim, as ever, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.